Hello, this is Cho of the Shiny Colors Discord. Welcome to another episode of the Shiny Review. Today we have 3 new cards to talk about: a new produced SSR for Toru, and support SSRs for Sakuya and Madoka. Keep in mind, of course, that Toru and Sakuya are limited. They may return again in the future, but we don't know when. Hopefully, with the advent of Twilight's collection, reruns will happen a little more frequently, but it's hard to say. Starting things off, we have Toru. Our June bride for 2022 is almost unsurprisingly Toru, in order to pick back up her constant drip feed of content. That being said, the narrative behind Toru 4 is real good for her character progression, and should lead to some interesting changes down the road. Card-wise, she's a mixed attacker for single target and AoE dance, being able to buff her dance stat where each time she takes damage. She couples this with high attention boosting and damage cut on her link appeals to keep herself healthy. Toru 4 at this moment in time feels exactly like what Tanka 7 did for Vocal Austro on her release. Toru will absolutely raise Dance Noctchill high up on the podium with a reasonably strong assortment of buffs and passives combined with a solid appeal, and gives Dance Noctchill a temporary center. She seems better served as a dance unit, but there's no real choice at the time, so do what you can. My biggest issue is that she comes off as slightly weaker than previous Toru because she's scaled back a bit. And that makes more sense when you think about it in the context of when those cards were released versus when this card was. Her roles are center, attack all, attention up, damage cut, and a buffer, and I moderately to highly recommend pulling for Toru. If you have wanted a team to start, if you've come into the game late, this is a great card to focus around. While the team itself isn't quite ready, this is going to be a card that's going to last for a good bit. Toru's initial skill is a Dance 2.0 appeal that follows up with a Dance 1.5 appeal to all judges. Buffs your dance by 30% for 3 turns, depending on how many times you're hit. The maximum number of times you can be hit is 4, and you have 5 turns to be hit 4 times once you use this appeal. So you can't get the buff the same time you deal the damage. You deal the damage, then you apply this buff that kind of lingers for 5 turns, and if you're hit, every time you're hit, you get a Dance 30% up for 3 turns. Hopefully that makes sense. The Link appeal, which only requires Madoka, is a 100% attention buff for 3 turns that also applies a 50% mental damage cut for 3 turns. The max version of this skill is a Dance 3.0 appeal that follows up with a Dance 2.0 appeal to all judges, and raises your dance by 60% for 3 turns, up to 4 times within 5 turns after using the appeal every time you're hit. So the max version of this allows you to go up to 240% dance, while the initial skill lets you go up to 120% dance, combining together for a lot of dance. The Link appeal on this skill, which requires Koito and Hinata, is an attention 1000% up for 3 turns and a mental damage cut of 75% for 3 turns. Toru's 1-star passive is a dance 60% up and attention 30% up that requires the turn count to be 2 or earlier and has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 2-star passive is a dance 85% up that requires 3 or more active dance buffs. This has a 30% chance to activate twice. This also unlocks a dance plus 50 uncap. Her 3-star uncap is a dance plus 150, and her 4-star passive is a dance 150% up that simply requires Toru to be in your skill history, and this has a 30% chance to activate twice, which also unlocks a dance plus 100 uncap. Her memory appeal when maxed out is a dance maximum 3.0 appeal, scaling based on how high your attention is, that links into a dance 2.5. For the support recommendations, Koito is currently the only decent on-brand support for Toru, so feel free to bring her along if you have her. Asahi and Fuyuko are a good duet since Toru can stack dance buffs easily, and Natsuha, Juri, and Kaho will help facilitate this with good synergy and attention as well. There's a lot of good stamina floating around here, some SP generation, and of course, attention raising. Now, hilariously enough, Antika have a reasonable amount of synergy at this point to work on pure dance builds as well. Mamimi helps provide attention once you're below half, which can help facilitate plays off of Kiriko's passive, which requires you to be a little less healthy than Mamimi does. Or, you can use Daikichi to stall for a turn, or a couple turns at least, and set up for big plays later. Now, no team recommendation for now, because Dance Noctchill isn't quite ready yet. You can make a core around Toru 4, Madoka 4, and then any choice of Noctchill cards. For now, I think it's maybe best to hold off. If we get, say, a Koito, I think we're in a good spot. We're just gonna have to see. Now, as a center, Toru earns an S. Her ability as a center is very good. You'll have to actively make sure to hit max memory since the bulk of her damage revolves around the first attack rather than the link. So, getting to max level memory means that you're probably not doing step unless you are super optimized through TFD books. or you have to take a huge hit and damage, and I don't think that's very good. It's an easy memory appeal to hit max damage with thanks to attention scaling, and has the benefit of being faster than the usual memory appeal thanks to Noctchill needing turn 4 rather than the turn 5 that you would see from, say, Hokura or Antika, but still slower than something like Illumine's turn 3. As a unit, I would say A+. Maybe a little better, but I think time's gonna have to really tell on this. As a character, Toru is also very good. The interesting thing about that is, depending on how you feel, this Toru is actually weaker than Toru 2 in terms of buff and damage potential. But the intention I feel is that because Toru 2 is designed with wing in mind, Toru 4 is designed with step intentionally. Step can make some really powerful cards, especially if you really optimize for it, and I think that she'll benefit a lot because of it. Again, I wish that the AoE was maybe a little stronger, or the single target was just a tiny bit higher. The buffs, I think, are understandable because it's an easier activation condition than actively avoiding things like Toru 2. So, the A+ may be a little misleading. I do think the card is still very good. Just give this card a little more time. Give the team one more card like a Koito or a Hinana that can act as center so Toru can play as the actual dance position. And I think the stock of this card will rise exponentially. So just get ready for that, I think. Next up, we have Sakuya. For the first time in a little bit, Antika have received support for their vocal lineup in the form of a groomed Sakuya accompanied by bridal Mamimi and Yuika. Functionally, this card is very similar to the old vocal Antika model, reducing interest while also ignoring it, though the interest debuff only lasts for a single turn. I suppose if you look at it in a vacuum, you'd hit through a Daikichi Judge and then neutralize the interest for your AI opponents, but I'm not sure how much that actually helps you. She's pretty okay, but she's nothing ridiculous, all things considered. Her support skills are Idol's Bond, Promise Recovery, and Rest Boost, and she has 3 unique support skills. Vocal Mastery Vocal Limit Up, which reaches +8 at level 80, Unit Mastery SP reaching +10 at level 70, and Vocal Mastery Stamina reaching +6 at level 75. Her support appeal does scale, starting at a Vocal 3.0 out the box, working its way up to a 3.5 by level 80. Her TFD idea is Appeal, her Insight token for Grad is Visual, and her proficiencies in Landing Point are in Vocal and Visual. Sakuya's initial appeal is a Vocal 2.5 that ignores interest and lowers the judge's interest by 30% for 1 turn. Her 1-star passive is a Vocal 50% up that requires the turn count to be 3 or earlier and has a 20% chance to activate twice, which also unlocks a mental +50 uncap. Her 2-star passive is a Vocal 120% up that requires your max mental to be over 3,000 and the turn count to be 4 or later, which also has a 30% chance to activate twice. Her 3-star uncap is a Vocal +100, and her 4-star appeal is a Vocal 3.5 that ignores interest and reduces the interest of the judge by 50% for 1 turn, and also unlocks a Vocal +50 uncap. Sakuya earns an A+ to an S-. Sakuya is solid. I don't imagine that her appeals are going to pull you out of the trenches, but her 2-star passive is very confident, her masteries are good for general building, and help support Antika, which they desperately need. This also gives them specifically a more on-brand visual token if you're still building in Grad, since Mamimi lacks a powerhouse vocal support still. Almost really good, but not quite. But definitely not bad. That's the key thing to take away from this banner, is that both cards are really good, but they're not amazing. I moderately recommend pulling for the Sakuya if you build around Vocal or Antika. Lastly, we have Madoka. A freebie visual Madoka for those who really missed out on either of her gacha supports. She helps bolster your visual stat and can refund a little bit of your stamina once you completely max her out. Her passives, as always, are nothing to write home about because she's an event card, and her appeal is okay but nothing groundbreaking. She's good filler if you needed her. Her support skills are Idol's Bond, Room Mastery, Trouble Guard, and Stamina support, and she has Visual Mastery Visual and Visual Mastery Stamina as her unique support skills, the latter reaching +3 at level 80 and the former +10 at level 75. Her support appeal is a scaling one, of course, starting at Visual 2.5, working its way up to a Visual 3.0. Her TFD idea is Appeal, her Insight token for Grad is Vocal, and her proficiencies on Landing Point are Vocal Visual. Seems familiar. Her 1-star passive is a Visual 18% up if the turn count is 4 or later, and has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 2-star passive is a Visual 35% up that requires 1 or more active reaction buffs, and has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 3-star uncap is a Visual +50, and her 4-star appeal is a Visual 2.0 that raises your evasion by 10% for 4 turns, and your attention by 10% for 4 turns. Her event passive is a visual 20% up if Madoka is on your team, and it has a 40% chance to activate twice. Madoka earns a C+ to a B-. Not having a strong appeal combined with a fairly lackluster but serviceable set of masteries is the only things really keeping Madoka completely out of a C-tier card in my eyes. If you view her as higher or lower, that's on you. Her gold passive isn't particularly impactful, which is really unfortunate coming off of the visual Nichika support, who was a freebie, who had a solid gold passive and a great appeal to work with. Just use this card to fill out your Madoka library, read the commus, and move on. You might as well farm for Madoka while she's here. And that will do it for the video today. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. Next time we'll be talking about whatever banner comes next. We also have the Fest Review coming up later this month. Should be pretty interesting, I would say. I don't know, I've been feeling a little burned out of Shiny. There's been a lot of things I've not been super agreeing with, but I will do my best to continue bringing Shiny Colors content to you as I can and am willing. So, until next time, I've been Cho, thanks for watching, have a wonderful rest of your day.